Okay, I'm Newton Cook, and facilitate this meeting. I just want to welcome everyone here, and I'll make more description of what the meeting is and after a few comments. I'd like to introduce Mr. Drew Bartlett, the Executive Director of the South Florida Water Management District. And Drew.
Thank you, Newton. Welcome everybody to the Recreation Forum. This is a meeting that we have every quarter to talk about recreation on district lands, and I appreciate all the attendance. Usually we're in West Palm, and so now we're on the West Coast because there's some important things to talk about today and tonight. I want to thank Rob Moeller and Paul Seifer for hosting us tonight on the West Coast. Very lovely facility with mood lighting and everything. Thank you so much. And then I also would like to introduce Colonel Charlotte Roman, who's the board member over here on the west side. She's the chair of the Big Cypress Basin for Collier County and represents the eastern counties in the South Florida Water Management District.
Oh, we have to hold this up until. Welcome, everyone, and it's great to have you on the West Coast. It's really terrific to see the turnout and to see the great agenda that we have for our meetings. So I'm really, really appreciative of you taking time out to join us this evening as we discuss some of these important topics. And it's great to have everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roman. You'll learn a lot today. I always learn something at every recreation forum. I get a lot of feedback, and at the Water Management District, we're very engaged in trying to do something about feedback and really take it seriously. So your participation is very valuable to us, but I hope you get something out of this meeting because I know I will. I'll turn it back to you, Newton. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Just a few house cleaning items. Obviously, we're live streamed tonight. We're not Zoomed, unfortunately, but that's just a matter we deal with tonight. We'll hear public comments, and we've got the table filled. That's great. We're going to do a quick run around the table just so people can introduce themselves in a moment. And anybody in the back that would like to introduce themselves, just raise your hand and you'll be recognized. We'd like to know who you are, where you're from, who you represent, if possible. And that goes on the record so that we know that the representation from the different groups and stakeholders are on the record to see. We have a full agenda, so we're always out of here by 8. I think we went 5 minutes after 8. I keep being reminded once or twice over the 20 years. But we do try to get out of here exactly at 8 o'clock. I noticed that we take public comments. Raise your hand, we're going to recognize you. We want to hear from you, and there's no 3-minute warning here, but I have a soft gavel, and if we get wordy, I'll try to ask you to shorten it up because there's a lot of other people probably like to speak. And on agenda item 5, it has multiple parts, and we're just asking to hold off comments on that item till we get through the very end of it. When you do comment, you need to say your name and if you represent someone on the mic so that it registers on the record. And the microphones in here, these at the table, you just hold them down and the red light means you can speak. Some of them are a little different, but you have to hold the button down. And then the people who don't have a mic in front of them, we have a microphone right over there in that corner. And we also have a walk-around mic back here. So just raise your hand and you will be recognized. Okay, let's start with just some quick introductions around the table. If you have an item or issue in 2 sentences or less, this is the time you can mention them so that it will be up on the front end of the meeting. There will be an item chance at the back of the meeting to have a more lengthy discussion of what you might want to talk about after we've been through the meeting and heard the content of the meeting. So I guess we can start with Drew.
Hello again, Drew Bartlett, Executive Director, South Florida Water Management District.
Jennifer Reynolds, I'm the Director of Ecosystem Restoration at the district.
Mary Cruz Fincher, General Counsel at the district.
Charlotte Roman, Governing Board Member of the South Florida Water Management District and Chair of the Big Cypress Basin Board.
Good evening, I'm Rich Virgil. I'm the Division Director for Field Operations and the Land Management Division as well. Thank you.
Ray Palmer, I'm the Bureau Chief of the Real Estate Department at District.
I'm Matt Morrison with the Ecosystem Restoration Division at the South Florida Water Management District.
Thank you.
Sherry Helsel, owner of Everglades Isle.
I'm Tom Dow. I'm here on behalf of Everglades Isle. Our residents like to hike, bike, fish, and kayak on the neighboring public lands.
Charles Thomas, I'm here with Everglades Isle.
Am I good? Oh, I don't have to hold it. Tom's coaching me. Ernie Cox with Family Lands Remembered and here on behalf of Wild Landscapes, and we helped to put this conservation deal together. Look forward to the discussion.
Tom Reiner, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I'm the Regional Director for our South region. I do have some officers here today, so Bishop, if you get any ideas, I've got my protection here. So.
I'm Cole Luttrell. I'm the biologist at Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park.
BJ Gibbons, Bureau Chief, South Florida DEP.
Joe Berger, the Park Manager at Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park.
Franklin Adams, Collier County Waterkeeper Board, former Chairman of the Florida Wildlife Federation, Everglades.
Wayne Moss, retired FWC from Collier County and also part of the directors of the Waterkeeper program.
Bruce Minton, owner of Everglades City Airboat Tours.
Stephen Lenz, airboat captain, Everglades City Airboat Tours.
Bob Lucius, I'm the Executive Director of the Crew Land and Water Trust.
Bishop Wright, Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association and the Florida Airboat Association.
Brad Wyrock, Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association and the Florida Airboat Association.
Jerry Bridget, KRBSA.
Jill Margolius, Communications Director with the South Florida Water Management District. Marie DeSource, Senior Scientist, Water Management District.
James Harbaugh, District.
Mike Cheek, Public Use and Recreation at the Water Management District.
Hey there, this is Justin Nolte. I'm the Section Administrator for the District's Land Stewardship Section.
Good evening, everyone. Dan Cotter, Section Leader of the Public Use Unit in the Land Resources Bureau.
Good evening. Rory Feeney, Land Resources Bureau Chief for the South Florida Water Management District. And there are some more chairs over here for the folks in the back.
Molly Brown, District Clerk, South Florida Water Management District.
Chair, there are some chairs back in the back here. If anybody back there want to introduce themselves and make a comment, just raise your hand. Yes, sir. And the mic is right, straight that direction. Well, you can use one of those if you like.
I'm Ray Bearfield. I'm the Collier County Waterkeeper.
We need you on the yeah.
Yeah, my name's Mayor Graham. I'm Howie Graham. I'm the mayor of Everglades City.
Thank you very much. There are some more chairs over here, folks, behind me. Anyone else? Okay. thanks for everyone coming out. I come to these meetings, and at 4:15, I'm sitting there thinking, no one's here. And invariably, we do pretty good. And I have to say, Drew, we outdrew the governing board meeting again. Okay. We're going to start off tonight with public use projects updates. And Dan Cotter will make this presentation. And this is a really interesting part of the program because the district just does incredible work. And it starts at Shingle Creek at Orlando and goes all the way to the Keys. And at these meetings, we get a chance to see what's going on. And I hope people appreciate how much work is being done. Okay, Dan.
Okay, evening everyone. Dan Cotter. And welcome to everybody, especially those, of our regulars who have driven them far away, and then all the people here that are new to our meeting. The main focus, of course, while we're over here is the Green Heart of the Everglades. But every meeting we also give an update, and you'll get an idea of all the different recreation projects and things we have going on throughout the district. So that's what I'll be talking about, numerous counties and numerous areas. All right, this first slide, we're actually going to watch a video. This was a boat ramp that we just built several months ago, and someone shot an aerial and drone footage of it, so just sit back. It's about 3 minutes. I'll go ahead and show you that. That's off of, if you can see in the pictures there, off of Tamiami Trail into Water Conservation Area 3B.
We're all very much appreciative of the district and what you all have done here. And so we're going to get on the boats. We're going to go for a ride. Marshall's going to take us to an island, and we can spend some time there talking and praising you for all the great things you've done. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Thanks, Drew. All right, guys, so all these boats, pick wherever you want to go. There's no real assigned seating, wherever you're comfortable. For those of you that never get a chance to get out here, this is how everybody in the Everglades connects to the Everglades, by having an opportunity to see them. And Everglades restoration threatened to limit access here, and Drew, you and your staff, took a lot of comment from people at your quarterly rec meeting, and you listened to what everybody said, and you guys put together a plan and solved the problem. And so we just want to bring you out here and let you know that we're grateful. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing to ensure that everybody can still keep coming here. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you. Giant, huh? Didn't think you see all this today, did you?
No, this is the best part of what's left
Yeah,
right here.
it's awesome.
Come into these areas and see
It seems simple, like it's just an airboat ramp, but you're right, Rory. It represents a lot more than an airboat ramp.
All right, thanks for watching that. The next, since we're in this area over here in the southwest portion of Florida, I figured to give you an overview, if you haven't been there before, of our CREW, or Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed property, which is located in both Lee and Collier counties, and just give you a high-level overview of all the recreation that provides. There's 5 main access points. You've got the Gate 1, 3, and 5, which offer access for a variety of recreational opportunities, which you'll see. That's off of Corkscrew Road. And then the Bird Rookery Swamp, which is probably one of the most popular sites over here. That's located off of Mockley and Shady Hollow Road. And then the Flint Pen Strand, which is at the southwest corner off of Bonita Beach Road, and that's got 3 parking lots within that access point. And we get approximately 65,000 visitors a year to this site. Wide range of activities there, hiking, biking, wildlife viewing, hunting, camping, horseback riding, and a lot of environmental education, especially with our partners, which I'll go over in a second here. Volunteerism is very active. Get a hold of the CREW Trust. They manage the volunteers there. And this is just an example of many volunteer projects where these volunteers got together and put together and installed these benches for environmental education programs. Our 2 big partners are CREW, and a really big one is the CREW Land, Water, and Trust, which we refer to as the CREW Trust. They provide a lot of resources on the site, do a lot of environmental education, a lot of outreach to the community, provide guided hikes, manage the volunteers, and help with the land management support on the lands. And then, of course, one of our biggest partners throughout the district is FWC, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. They help coordinate the public use, including the hunting regulations. We have a staff person there that provides wildlife and land management assistant, and law enforcement, of course, enforces the rules and regulations. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start to move throughout the district on some of the subjects that have come up over the last couple years even, and some new things that have happened. The last time we met was in September. The Kissimmee River restoration is done. It's great if you haven't been out there. There is some areas that have riprap, and the Corps contractor has just mobilized. I was out there the other day. They're mobilized. They're about to begin in the next week or 2, and they'll be putting up these warning signs where that riprap is. So that should take about 6 months. So that's good to hear that that's starting. Some other things on the Kissimmee River, just some overviews of some projects and some little events that have taken place. And they came and we have groups come and present at our meetings, organizations and nonprofit organizations and volunteer groups. And one is the Florida Paddle Trail Association. They actually conducted a paddle all the way from Lake Kissimmee, the bottom of Lake Kissimmee, to Lake Okeechobee. And we've worked, especially some of the staff that I've worked with, to implement new campsites. So you've got a campsite about every 10 to 12 miles to be able to do this. So, and they, along with some of the other organizations, helped with those campsites, clearing them and installing tables and fire rings. And we will be working on, we've mentioned this before, on a designation designated as a Blue Way paddling trail. And it really just promotes the use of the river for paddling. Just a FYI for those that use the river quite often and camp, we relocated 2 campsites just to better locations. One of them is the Boney Marsh Boat-In campsite, which you can see on the map. It's now been relocated to a higher, drier, better site than it previously was, and that's a boat-in, accessible-only campsite. And the other one was the S65E campsite, same thing, located to a better area, higher and drier. Both have picnic table, fire rings. They're both boat-in accessible. And if you haven't camped on district lands before, it's a pretty simple process. You can register on our website for a special use license, and no cost, and be able to camp at sites like this by getting a special use license. And that's the link right there if you're interested. Going back up to the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes, up there, as you can see on the map, by Lake Cypress and what we refer to as Rough Island and Johnson Island. We have a lot of camping areas in the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes. Most of them are boat in, if not all of them. And we also have day use sites up there. And one of them is fairly new, the Cowboy Camp. It had been there for a while, but the volunteers came out there and redid it, built a shelter, very popular site. And then we have our Rough Island South Hammock day use site. And we're going to also allow camping now at those sites too. Okay, jumping all over. Now we're going to jump down to Broward County off of US 27, just north of 595. This subject has come up the last couple years at our meetings. The two boat ramps that were under FDOT on the west side of 27 have been shut down for quite a while. Now Broward County has taken them over, or taken one of them over, and it looks really good. And Broward County always does a great job. Parking lot's been redone. Boat ramp has been completely redone, and they've refurbished the dock there to the pier. So, and a big thanks to Broward County for doing that, and FWC, their boat ramp crew did a lot of work there. Okay, we'll jump on down south to Miami-Dade County. For those of you who have been down there before, just north of Southern Glades, we have a public small game hunting area called Rocky Glades. It's right now approximately 5,143 acres. There was a lot of restoration taking place around there, and that's for the most part done. So what we're going to do is to keep rules consistent throughout the whole area for law enforcement, and also add opportunities for hunting. We're going to add an additional approximately 5,347 acres to that small game area. So it's going to be quite an area. You know, it'll be over 10,000 acres. We'll need to go to the district's governing board to get approval to do that, but we look forward to that, and we'll work with FWC to establish that expansion. That also expands opportunities to take pythons, particularly with weapons, so that's a good note. And that's a real hot spot for pythons being captured. Okay, something that you probably have heard about and brought up, and Mr. Cook has asked me to talk about this too, along with our executive director. The C-44 stormwater treatment area, this is located in Martin County. Just on the eastern side of Indiantown, and this is a project that just got built. Okay, and we've got a 3,400 acre reservoir and a 6,300 acre stormwater treatment area. Today we're going to talk about the STA, what we plan to do there, and the plans that we've got already in place. What we want to do, and if we go, I don't know if I can go back or not. Go back to here, if you can see in that one aerial, we plan on constructing a parking area there. And we've actually got the engineered designs already, so this would allow, regular weekend use for a variety of activities. We've got these engineered designs complete. They'll include a parking area with ADA parking, kiosks. There's some examples there in the pictures, prefab concrete restroom, shelter and benches along the trail and within designated areas of the STA. So hope to do that in the next year or two here to get those facilities built. In the meantime, we'd like to get some use out there, particularly on the STA. We'll need to go to the district's governing board to designate it for public use, and also to approve for future hunting. So if we can do this in phases, open it up for the managed activities while the parking lot's being constructed, going out for bid and being constructed. And these are activities that are highly managed. We have many of our STAs, we have Audubon guided birding tours. A couple leaders will go out there and lead groups around on the weekends for birding tours. And then we also, of course, as many of you know, at many of our STAs, we have managed waterfowl and alligator hunts. So Like to do that, and then once we construct the parking lot, then it'll be open every weekend for hiking, biking, and wildlife viewing. Moving over to St. Lucie County, this is another project that's been built, and it's quite a bit smaller than the C-44. It is the 10 Mile Creek Water Preserve area, and it consists of about a little over 500-acre reservoir and a little over about 132-acre stormwater treatment area. So the public access is a lot easier here, and we've always had this planned. The county leases an area adjacent to it as a park. It's called the Gordy Road Recreation Area, and it's popular for biking, hiking, wildlife viewing. It's actually very popular they've got a disc golf course there. What's great is they have a parking area already established that's right near the STA. So once we get the proper signage out there and a walk-through gate, we'll be able to allow people to walk and get to the STA and a good portion of the reservoir. And this too will need to go to the governing board for approval for public use. Just an update on Stormwater Treatment Area 2 and the closure update. And I give our contractor and our PM, our project manager, a lot of credit. If you remember our September meeting, we've got a lot of construction going out there, and they were able to allow, adjacent to the construction of the S620 down at the south end of STA2, they were allowed for us to, particularly during the hunting season, people fish there a lot too, access through STA2 over to Sportsman's Crossing and Water Conservation Area 2A. We're able to do that. Unfortunately, a big construction project starts in April, and that will have a lot of hauling going through that bridge and access, and we're going to need to close it down temporarily, and hopefully we can get it open, either at the beginning or close to the beginning of in November. It should go to about November, December. We'll keep following that along and give you an update when we come back at our next meeting. But yeah, we'll need to close that down starting in April. And thanks to our executive director, he recognized we had a lot of facilities out there. Some have been out there for over 20 years throughout the district. Everything from boardwalks to restrooms to boat ramps, you name it, that are are needed of refurbishment. So we've got a 5-year plan in place to address things throughout the district. We've just started that. I'll be coming back to you at future meetings and telling you where we're at and what projects we're working on. So I just highlighted a couple here. One in particular is the Crew Bird Rookery Swamp. That trail is one of the most popular trails on district lands in this area. And to get to those trails, you've got to cross a 1,400-foot boardwalk. That's really nice, goes through that portion of the swamp. And then that leads to 12 miles of old tram trails that are really popular for hiking, biking, wildlife viewing. So the boardwalk, the substructure is in need of replacement. So we're having that designed this year, and then if everything goes as planned, we'll construct that next year and then completely redo that boardwalk. Another project that's done, and thanks to James Harbor, who I work with, just another example of STA 1 West, a real popular boardwalk overlook there just inside the parking lot. And you can see the before and after pictures. This was just finished a couple weeks ago. Many boards and some of the substructure and the railing needed to be replaced. So that is complete. And then for those of you that, another popular site and part of the Hungryland Wildlife Management Area is an area on the east side called Palmar East or Nine Gems. And it's a popular parking lot for hunting and particularly equestrian use. Parking lot was just getting worn down, and especially if it rained, it was a mess. And so that has been completed. And you can see, and thanks to Marshall Davis, one of our staff members has the expertise. He actually did this whole thing and redid the whole parking area, so that's complete, and saving the district several $1,000s. All right, volunteers are a big part of our of the district, and particularly under the public use program. And we've got lots of volunteers out there doing a lot of things, but I just figured I'd give you an example of a few things that either have taken place or going to take place. Back in January, and some of the members are here from the Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association, and they do this annually. They had a big waterway cleanup, over 50 volunteers, 15 airboats, side-by-sides, took out 2,200 pounds of trash into that upper Chain of Lakes area. And, you know, we can always equate what that volunteer in-kind services is, and just the volunteers alone was over $12,000, not including all the equipment and resources that were needed. So big thanks to them. Florida Trail Association, those volunteers are out there all the time on our lands. The Florida National Scenic Trail goes through, a big portion of it in Florida goes through the South Florida Water Management District. And they conducted an annual hike at our Mico landing site on the Kissimmee River in Okeechobee County. And they had 13 volunteers, and almost, you know, there was about 50 hikers who showed up for that event and hiked about 10 miles of the Florida National Scenic Trail. Okay, and I think this is one of the last things I had maybe. Just so you know, we have an annual Kissimmee River Volunteer Project. Everyone's welcome, and it's usually hosted by the Florida Sportsmen's Conservation Association and the Lake Okeechobee Airboat Association, I believe it is. We've been doing this for several years. You know, when the district acquired the Kissimmee River properties, there was a lot of cattle out there. So when that was restored, there's a lot of fence posts, a lot of debris, and we've been doing this annually. So the next one is Saturday, May 4th. We'll be doing the same thing, removing debris, installing some signs to determine the airboat line. And if you are interested in joining that, just get with Matt Nelson. His email address is on there, and it's a chance to go out in a buggy. It's, you know, one of the few times we allow buggies on the property, and we'll probably have some airboats too with this, depending on the water conditions. And that is it. Hope you all enjoyed that. Something new, and pass this along, especially the clubs. Instead of getting your email address to Yvette and her sending out a mass email about the meeting, you can now, with this QR code or this link, register, and you'll be able to hear about all of our upcoming meetings. And that's it, if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you, Dan. As I said, from single, lots of things. You notice a couple of new notice those, but the district is just, and this is just another example of, with not a lot of push, I might add, but a lot of just, don't you think we can do this? And that's important. Okay, what we do now is after this presentation is anybody wants to make a comment, just raise your hand and you'll be recognized, and we'll start and go around again in this manner. So anyone over here want to make a comment, just raise your hand. Anyone on this side? Yes, sir.
I do. I'm here tonight because I've had the opportunity to work with Dan and the rest of the public use unit and the entire district staff over the last couple of years of my tenure as executive director. And I want to say you guys do a phenomenal job, and I appreciate all the support that I've gotten over the last couple of years. It makes our job at Crew Land and Water Trust a lot easier to meet the compatible public use demands of the public, but also our environmental and watershed education programs. 65,000 this year. I'm confident we're going to be up to 75,000 users on the crew management area. And also I want to thank Joe Bozzo and the land management team at the Crew Field Station, because we have a great collaborative relationship with the entire team, including our Fish and Wildlife colleagues. So thank you from the staff, the volunteers, the members, the supporters, and the trustees for everything that you do.
Thank you. Coming on around, yes, Bishop.
I'd like to thank staff for having these meetings and working with us on this. And if anybody wants to enjoy and see the interior of the Kissimmee River, that May 4th event is really a great time to get out. If you don't have a boat, if you don't have good feet and can't walk, but it's a good time to get out on the river and actually see what the restoration really looks like on the ground level of it. It's amazing how you can destroy Mother Earth and put her back, take away what man did to destroy it and get it back to its natural, to best it could be. But there's still a lot of fence posts and some things out there that are a hazard and need to be gone, and that's what we've been working on for the last few years. But if you got a chance and you want to join us, we'd love to have you on May 4th. We'll have plenty of opportunity for anybody who would like to volunteer.
Thank you, Bishop. And coming around, anyone else? Anyone in the back? Anyone behind me? Okay. Thank you very much, Dan. Coming up next, Big Cypress National Preserve Recreation Opportunities, Lisa Andrews, the Outreach Education Coordinator for the Big Cypress National Preserve. Lisa?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. As he said, I'm Lisa Andrews. I'm the Outreach and Education Coordinator at Big Cypress National Preserve. I started working there 30 years ago, and before that I had about 30 years recreating in Big Cypress. So it's a place that's very near and dear to my heart, and I know several of you I see in the audience that I recognize it's very near and dear to you as well. I love it because of the recreational opportunities that we have out there. Now, Big Cypress, for some of you who don't know it as well as the rest of us, it is a part of the National Park Service. And I know that you know some National Park Service units all across the country. There are 429 National Park units across our country now. And if you haven't been to them, you may have seen a documentary from one of them or visited them as a student on a field trip when you were younger. But we're very lucky to have those 429 national park units across the country. They're not all called parks. Only 63 of them are called parks. The rest of us have a different name, and it's because we allow different opportunities to go on there. We're very lucky here in Florida that we have 11 national park units, 4 of those right down here in our backyard. And if you look in the map, the big green one, that's us, Big Cypress, 729,000 acres. It's huge. And even bigger right next door, the yellow area, that's Everglades National Park with 1.5 million acres. Biscayne National Park on the East Coast, protecting the coral reefs and the marine environment there. And then if you have a boat or a float plane, you can go all the way out to the Dry Tortugas National Park, 70 miles off of Key West, providing a safe haven for nesting sea turtles and migrating shorebirds, and you can visit the fort there. So we're very lucky down here to have these 4 park units, but if you look at the map, you also see that only 3 of those are, well, 3 of them are called parks, and then there's Big Cypress National Preserve. We have that different name. Still a unit of the National Park Service. There are 22 different designations for national parks across the country. There are national seashores, national monuments and memorials, national battlefields and national historic sites and national lake shores, and the list goes on. But we're very lucky to be called a preserve because it does allow for more use. So why are we called a preserve? We allow hunting. It's been going on there for many, many years. We allow off-road vehicle use, or ORVs, the airboats, the UTVs, the swamp buggies, 4-wheel drive vehicles in an area of the preserve. We have oil and gas exploration and extraction within the preserve. We have private land ownership within the preserve. If you owned your bit of land when the preserve was established back in 1974, you were allowed to keep that land. You can sell it to a friend. You can pass it down through generations. You can sell it to the government. We used to have cattle leases within the preserve, and those have since expired. And we also have the traditional and customary uses of the Seminole and Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida. So with those different customary and traditional uses, they had to call us a different name, and they gave us the name the preserve to protect those traditional and customary uses. Big Cypress, looking at this map, you see all different colors there. Those represent different habitats, and there are 5 visibly, very noticeably different habitats within the preserve that we talk about most and those have to do with the changes in elevation. And I know you don't think there's much change in elevation here in South Florida, but it only takes a few inches to change the scenery, to change the different types of trees there and other vegetation. So for example, up in the left-hand corner, the hardwood hammocks, maybe only 18 feet above sea level, but very high and dry year-round, rich organic soils, a variety of food and cover at different times of the year. Coming down just a few inches, now you're in our pine lands with an understory of saw palmetto and cabbage palms, very sandy soils. Our pinelands may have a few inches of rain or water standing in them during the height of the rainy season, and some of our pinelands are dry year-round. Coming down a few more inches, you're in our vast open prairies with very sticky clay-like marl, maybe wet half the year and dry half the year. Different food sources again, and different cover for a variety of animals at different times of the year. And then my favorite, coming down a few more inches, the cypress swamp, which covers most of Big Cypress National Preserve and where we get our name from. Clean, clear, crystal clear water flowing through the swamps. And then down finally to the mangrove estuary at sea level that we're mostly, I'm sure everyone in here is familiar with. That diversity of habitats really lends itself to the vast diversity of plant and animal life in the preserve, and a lot of these things are found nowhere else but Big Cypress. So it is a very unique and very special place. And of course, that water I spoke about in the Big Cypress Swamp is rainwater. We don't get the water from Lake O and the Kissimmee River chain. We get the rain that falls on us and the rain to the north of us that flows down to the southwest into the estuary below. It's very important. As I mentioned, we allow off-road vehicles within the preserve. If you have a permit to operate your own private airboat or UTV or swamp buggy, you can bring it out and navigate our 278 miles worth of primary trails that are open right now. You can also enjoy our commercial operators eco tours. We have folks that are running swamp buggy and UTV tours within the preserve that are permitted operators. We have hunting, as I mentioned, and fishing. We're not only a National Park Service unit, but also with FWC, a wildlife management area. So they manage our hunt and fishing regulations. This map shows the northwest corner of the preserve, Bear Island, which is a great place for biking. If you have a fat tire bike, a hybrid, or a mountain bike, you can bring your own bike out. You can also join one of our ranger-led bike rides. We have those once a week from Thanksgiving to Easter up in the Bear Island area and on the Fire Prairie Trail, which is off of Turner River. The Bear Island area is a hard rock road, so it's really a nice area, and you see a lot of wildlife, and there's no vehicle traffic on that road except for off-road vehicles. Visitors can enjoy kayaking and canoeing within the preserve. We have two great canoe trails, the Turner River and the Halfway Creek Trail. Turner River is my favorite. It's very diverse, going through different habitats, a lot of wildlife to be seen there, and people can bring their own kayaks and canoes. You can rent locally, or you can have one of our permitted eco-tour guides take you on a trip, and our visitor center rangers also lead ranger-led canoe and kayak trips 3 times a week during the winter months. Birding has become a huge thing in South Florida, and as many of you know, during the dry down, which kind of hasn't happened this year, all those birds really gather out in our prairies when the water's just the right level to find food. The wading birds are spectacular out there. People come from all over the world, young and old. Down in the left-hand corner, those are little budding birders, preschoolers that come out that we host every year from a local preschool, and they become birders in the preserve. But we get a lot of birding groups and a lot of folks that are very interested in this. We have campgrounds within the preserve, 3 improved campgrounds right along Highway 41, the Monument Lake, Burns Lake, and Midway campgrounds, and then a variety of backcountry campsites. And pretty much you can camp anywhere in the preserve if you can find dry ground. Florida Trail, 30 miles of it runs right through Big Cypress. So if you're interested in hiking, that's a great opportunity. Pretty much anywhere in the preserve you see something that calls your name and is interesting to you, you can hike anywhere. But the Florida Trail, the Fire Prairie Trail, and the Gator Hook Trail are the only marked, identified trails. It's not like anywhere else where you have nice high, dry ground. You're mostly wet walking, and a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't want to or might be scared their first time. They think they're going to die out there. But if you go with a ranger, one of our ranger-led programs that we do every day during the winter months, or go with one of our permitted eco-tour guides, you can really experience the swamp how you should experience it by getting in it and getting wet and learning about it, so you'll really appreciate it so much more. We've become an international dark sky park. We received our designation, I think in 2016, after 3 long years of retrofitting all our lighting in the parking lots and buildings throughout the park, the preserve. We provide education programs on night sky and light pollution, and there's a whole list of requirements to become an international dark sky place. We host night sky programs once a month in the winter, and we've had as many as 600 people come to these programs. Our rangers give a 45-minute program, and that's followed by looking through telescopes and looking at camera equipment that our 5 astronomy club partners bring out for the visitors to look through. So it's a pretty magical sight. People come from all over the state who have never seen the Milky Way or can't see the stars at night just to see our beautiful night skies in Big Cypress. We have a couple of scenic drives in the preserve. The Loop Road, some of you may have been on, a 23-mile long drive. Great place for wildlife viewing at different times of the year. And then the Turner River Wagon Wheel Bird-on Loop is 17 miles around from 41 back to 41. Great places to slow down. As you might know, Highway 41 is the most dangerous thing in the entire swamp. And if you stop along that road, it's pretty dangerous. And our visitors want to stop at every alligator they see. So these are roads we can encourage them to stop, get out, take pictures of alligators or other wildlife. And a couple of wildlife viewing platforms or boardwalks in front of our 2 visitor centers. Great places to bring guests and see a lot of wildlife, especially the alligators in front of Oasis Visitor Center. We have 2 visitor centers, the old Oasis Visitor Center that a lot of you may have been familiar with over the years. And then about 10 years ago, we also opened what was once called the Big Cypress Swamp Visitor Center and is now called the Nathaniel P. Reed Visitor Center, which is closest to Naples. The Swamp 6th grade environmental education program is an opportunity for every 6th grader in Collier County in their science classes as part of their grade and part of their science curriculum to come out and become instant swamp scientists for the day, doing water quality testing, studying the soil, the weather, and the plant and animal life in Big Cypress. So we see about 3,000 6th graders every year, along with about 10,000 other preschool to Rhodes Scholar age folks who want to come out and experience the swamp for another opportunity. And then with our ranger-led activities, we see another 10 to 15,000 each year. Big Cypress and the surrounding areas are really a paradise for artists. People come there to be inspired to write music or poetry or sculpt, or maybe they're painters or wildlife, nature photographers. But it is a place for those people to get their creative juices going out in the swamp. It's a place for a lot of people. I hope you'll all get out there if you haven't been. I know a lot of people in here love it and get out there regularly, but if you haven't, come on out, and it provides a lot for South Florida folks. So, any questions? Yes. Hold it down, Franklin.
Lisa, I have a question, but I really question that you've been out there 30 years in the preserve.
Longer than that.
But thank you for the overview this evening, but I just want to say that your major contribution you've made over the years, not just in Collier County, has been taking those sixth graders and their teachers out into the swamp and teach them that it's not a park, it's a preserve.
That's
And
right.
You can be here.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. I wonder if anybody in this room has been through the sixth grade program. You only have to be 36 to have been through that program. It's been going on for 25 years.
Coming around behind me. Okay, Mike.
Good job, Lisa.
Thank you, Mike. And I will say, if you have any more questions or are interested, I put our superintendent, who couldn't be here tonight and asked me to come because he's overbooked, I put his information on our website and Facebook page up too, if you'd like more information. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and that was a wonderful presentation, and the place is incredible. I've only been there a couple of times. It's a bit of a way from me, being up north a bit. But I can tell you it's a magical place, there's no doubt about it. And that's why people love it so much, and that's why it has a lot of controversy occasionally because of that. But that's what it's all about. People love that place, and they want to participate and be there. Okay, we will move on. Fakahatchee Preserve, State Park, Recreational Opportunities, B.J. Gibbons. He's the Bureau Chief, District 4 Administration Division of Recreation and Parks, Department of Environmental Protection. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. And thanks to staff for inviting us here this evening and Lisa, a wonderful presentation. As I said, I am the Bureau Chief. I serve in the role of Bureau Chief for Southwest Florida State Parks. And I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about the history of Florida State Park, how we came to be. We kind of like the little sister to the National Park Service. One of many, because you guys have quite a few. We're also going to talk about Fakahatchee Preserve, the system, and how this park came to be part of Florida State Park and the great things that's inside of this park. Now, I want to start out with the mission of the Florida Park Service. This is our mission. We take this very, very, very seriously. And this is our guiding principles for making sure that we stay on track, regardless whether I'm here, or whether the governor change or the secretary change. This mission has saved this division for many, many years, and we hope to keep it going for many years to come. Now, Florida State Parks, as I said, we're the little sisters of the National Park Service. We only have 813,000 acres for all the Florida State Parks across the state. That equates to 174 state parks, and it's broken down by districts. We have 5 districts in the state. Now, this 813,000 acres, we do about $3.6 billion in economic impact per year, and that's about 28 million guests. Now, to put that 28 million guests in context, you know we have this little mouse that lives in Florida. They do about 22,000 people a year. Now, we ain't gonna talk about the revenue. That's a whole nother story. But we do quite a few people. A lot of folks love this park. One of the things that impacted me, I was over at Blue Springs over near Orlando a couple of weeks ago, visiting with the park manager, and he got very emotional. He was talking about his park, and he said, you know, a couple came in about an hour ago, and they said, we only have a few hours. It's a little layover here in Orlando. We had to make a choice. Do we go to Disney World or Universal Studios, see what we can see, or do we go to Blue Springs? And this family say, we going to Blue Springs, we want to see the manatee. And that tells a story about what we do and where we are. We provide that little resource for all the people to come down. Now, in your backyard, because these are your state parks, you have the best state park system in the country. If we're the best in the country, we often say we're the best in the world. We're the only state park in the whole nation that's ever won 4 gold medals. Only recently, I think Virginia just won the 2nd. Now, the gold medal is not about who has the best beach. It's not about who has the most acreage. It's about how that system parks is ran. And we don't vote for ourselves. Other park people, they make the decision as, well, who's the best state park system in the country? 4 times in a row, they pick Florida. Now, we got this little thing going on, and you can only go for it once every 5 years. So now we coming up on the 25th year, we're going for it again next year. So our slogan is 5 for 25, so we hope we get it for the 5th time in a row. But you guys do have the best park system in the country, if not the world, right here in the state of Florida. It belongs to you. Now, as I said, we split up in 5 districts. Now, here, I'm in District 4, and this equates to about 34 state parks. It goes from Sumter County down to Monroe, not quite the Keys. We often say we cover from the Everglades to the Mermaids. We got Wickiwatcha Springs. We'll talk about that another day. Also here, in Fakahatchee, as part of District 4, Fakahatchee is the largest state park we have in this system. You know, over here on the table, I've got Mr. Joe Berger. Joe, if you raise your hand. Mr. Joe Berger, he is the park manager of Fakahatchee Stream, the largest park in the system. Also with Joe, we got Cole Luttrell. He's a park biologist for the same. And these guys, Joe's fairly new to both of these guys are fairly new to the Park Service, but they're doing a great job, and can't wait to see where you guys take us to next. Now, much like the National Park Service, our big brother, we also have different designations for our state parks. A state park designation is a designation in itself, but all state parks is not a state park. State parks kind of do a little bit of everything. We have a little bit of recreation. We have a lot of people coming in. We like to say we got this big old white carpet that we're trying to keep clean, but we're inviting all our friends in every single day, but we're trying to keep that carpet clean. We also have a historic site. At historic sites, we're going to prioritize the event or the function that took place there over recreation. We got to make a choice. We got one way or the other. We're going to go with that historic site. Where state parks, you're going to try to balance a little bit of everything, a little bit of recreation, a little bit of preservation, a little bit of everything. Now we'll have recreation areas. Most of the time, this is down at a beach. At the beach, we don't care. Come on in. You know, this is a carpet, but we also have some green space, but we're prioritizing people and their recreation over preservation of the resources. So you might find roads and that sort of stuff inside those parks. But if you notice, Fakahatchee Strand is a preserve. Now, unlike our big brother, we see this designation as a preserve a little bit differently. Inside Florida state parks, when you designate it a preserve, that means that we're going to prioritize the preservation of that resource over anything else. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do some development inside of the park, because we do. We got to have roads, we got to have bathrooms, we got to have boardwalks. But the primary thing is we're going to keep that footprint as small as possible. And that's what Fakahatchee is, and that's what these guys and myself is our charge of trying to protect and hold on to that. Now, Fakahatchee Strand, early conservation efforts, that is. Way back in 1922, it's reported that Henry Ford came to Fakahatchee Strand. This is before the old growth cypress were cut. He offered it to the state of Florida to buy. Well, he offered to buy it for the state of Florida and actually donate it to them or buy it from them. But Florida wasn't set up at that time to do that. So it didn't take place. But the old growth cypress trees, they were intact at that time when he did make this offer. He saw the future. But the Florida Park Service didn't have a park service at the time. So it didn't happen. Now, around 1930, we have this thing called the CCC, right? So the CCC era came along, and Florida, in order to be part of CCC, as you know, folks needed jobs and works, that sort of thing. In order to be a part of the CCC, to get these fellows to come to work, you had to have some state-owned lands. Florida didn't own any. They passed up on Fakahatchee Strand. So what they did, they hastily created the Florida Park Service. So in 1935, we got the Florida Park Service. We came into being. We became Little Sisters of the National Park Service. Highlands Hammock over in Sebring area was our very first state park. CCC came in and worked and started creating parks all around the state. Now, in 1948, the National Park Service, they did consider taking over, Fakahatchee part of a national park system, but it was rejected for a lot of reasons. I'm not certain of the facts, but a lot of rumors going on as why it was rejected. But was not taken, it wasn't designated a National Park Service at that time, and I think they missed out. And I'll tell you why a little bit later. So, we didn't take it. Henry Ford didn't get it. So around 1944, a little company called Lee Tidewater Cypress Company bought the land. They bought quite a bit of that land. They were taking out about 1 million board feet a week out of Fakahatchee Strand. And also during that time, you guys familiar with the town of Copeland, some of you guys? Copeland was also created about that same time. Copeland was created as a typical logging town, if you will. So it was created, and the logging company owned the houses, the logging company owned the company store, the logging company printed their own money, so they would pay you, like many businesses back there would do, in their money, and you would go to their store, you would pay their rent, so the money came back. And that's where Copeland came from Lee Tidewater, way back when they left, all the jobs was gone, and now we left with Copeland, which I think is a lovely little town. So, the Strand. So, as you guys know, we have a lot of strands inside of trams, that is, inside of Big Fakahatchee, that is. Now, these trams was created during the logging process. And what they would do, they would basically dredge the area, create some dirt. They would lay some railroad tracks down on top of these dirt piles, and that's how they got those logs outside of the strand way back when. They could stretch about 800 yards, 800 feet from that railroad and drag trees out. Now, when you walk in some of these trams today, you might see some orange trees. You got to have some lunch. A lot of the workers, when they came out, they would bring citrus fruit, and you might go out there and find an orange tree in the middle of the swamp. It's like, where in the world did this come from? But just a fair warning, you bite into that orange, it's going to close your right eye, if you know what I mean. It's, you know, I'm just telling you. So, the Lee Tidewater, they was all done with the land. They had logged it out. It didn't take them very long. Then they sold the property to a company called Gulf American Land Company around 1966. And they were selling 1.4 acre lots for, I don't know, probably not very much money. I hear you can go to a fair and win one of these lots if you want to. They say it was great. Come on down to Florida. You can have a piece of your own Florida paradise. So the result of that, when the Park Service did take this property, when it came into the system around 1972, we got our first 9,235 acres from went the wrong way. Look at you. Don't you hate it when this happens? Oh my gosh, y'all are seeing the show. My goodness. That was quick. Who told me 15 minutes? That was Drew? Drew, I'm off. Oh my gosh. Say again? Okay, thank you, Angie. I want to go back, keep going back, keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. Stop. All right. So, again, as I was saying, when this property came into possession of Florida, into the system of Florida Parks in 72, all those little lots that were sold way back when by that Lee Tidewater Company, all those little yellow dots you see, those are inholdings inside of Fakahatchee Strands. And many of those inholdings, they were sold, as I said, by Tidewater. Now, unlike our big sister, the Florida Park Service is actively trying to purchase these lands anytime we have a willing seller. You do have access to your properties inside of the state parks, but we do want to make Fakahatchee whole one day, probably in about, I'm thinking about 1,800 years. We'll get there, but we're working on it. But this is the effect of not taking Henry Ford's offer way back when. So today, we started about 9,000 acres. Today, Fakahatchee is a little over 85,000 acres. And all those trams I talked about earlier, we now turned them to trails throughout the system. Now, I said earlier that I think that our big brother missed out when he didn't take this park. Fakahatchee's got so many superlatives, it's just crazy. As I said, it's the largest park in the system. It's critical habitat to so many rare and endangered species, both plants and animals, including this little guy who's an Everglades mink that you can actually see in the park, very rare little fella. We have the largest concentration and diversity of orchids in the United States of America, largest population of native royal palms in the U.S., and largest strand swamp in the world. So I think it's a pretty cool spot in our backyard. What y'all think? So what's a strand? This is the definition of a strand. And as I said, Fakahatchee is the largest in the world. We had 20 miles long, 5 miles wide. Pretty impressive place, and it's just teeming with all sorts of wildlife and opportunities for plants to grow inside this very special place. Now, some of the recreation opportunities, as I said, we are preserved, so a lot of times you're not going to see swamp buggies and that sort of things inside the park, but you are going to see a lot of trams, trails, and that sort of thing. Now, some of you guys are probably very familiar with the Jones Grade just off of 75. We have a lot of big lakes over there that you can fish, you can canoe, you can kayak. We don't allow swimming. And there's also a pretty cool trail system over there off of that road as well. That's one of the places off of that particular tram, off of, what is the name of that road? Say again? Highway 29, just off 29. I was talking about those trams they built way back when to get that log out. When you walk this particular trail at the very end of Jones Grade Road, you can see some of those log and railroad ties that they cut way back when and laid down. Those ties are still there. They rock hard. Not a lot of them. You got to look for them. And the way they got these ties, these railroad ties from, they would cut down a intact old growth cypress tree. They would cut it up. Then they lay it down to make this track that is to the board that is, and lay the trams on top, the trails on top. And those old boards they cut way back when, they still intact down there. You can also see some of those orange trees off Jones Grades Road. Another area we have in the park is East River Canoe Launch. Very small area, very popular area as well. Some of you guys that may own canoe liveries, I'm certain that you may have used this site. If you blink, you'll miss it. That's all I can tell you. There's also a bird rookery just off of that area as well. You can see it very clearly. Now, this area, we do control that by, the Joe actually control that by pre-reservations because it's so small. We can only get about 3 cars back in there at a time, but it's a pretty neat spot. So give Joe a call and he can get you back there. Now, one of our more popular areas in the park is Jane Scenic Drive. Pretty cool spot. I was talking about the Everglades mink earlier. This is one of the places where you may see that mink if you drive slow and take your time. Now, this is also off of Highway 29. This is also where the main park is located at. 11 mile long road, 6 miles you can drive, other 5 miles you have to hike. We also have quite a few trails off this Jane Scenic Drive as well. Now, we have what's called a Citizen Support Organization, or CSO. CSO is a nonprofit that's formed just to support what Joe do at Fakahatchee Strand. One of the things they do, which is very popular, is goat rider trams. They do moonlight trams. They do Fakahatchee night sky experience as well. And the most popular thing they do, which they're doing here on this photograph, they do swamp walks. They sell out quick, so if you've never been out in the swamp with one of these staff members, I would say don't miss the opportunity. The previous biologist, our director at the time, he wanted to go out there at night. And the biologist say, yeah, sure, we'll take you out there. So we went out there at moonlight, right? You hearing stuff splashing to your left, splashing to your right. There's about 12 of us. We come out, and you guys know Mike. I'm sure some of you guys know Mike. It was there for a very long time. Mike says, I've never done that before. So but he brought us back alive. Another area is the Big Cypress Bend Boardwalk. Some of you guys may know that we lost the original Big Cypress Bend Boardwalk doing Ian. In 1957, a fellow by the name of Lester Norris, he saved this little tract of land, about 640 acres from the timbering company. It's intact. He constructed our original 2,500-foot boardwalk, and then he deeded it a little bit later, once Fakahatchee came to be to the state of Florida, plus he gave the state about $67,000 just to help us take care of it. Now, this is one of our most visited locations in the park. We do about 100,000 people there. We got like parking space for 4. That math don't work. So what we've done, there's also an Indian Village next door as well. Now what we've done here, some of you guys may have seen it, we have created a brand new parking area that just opened about 2 months ago. This is new development inside of preserve, something that we took very, very seriously. We thought about it for a long time. This is actually located on that old 41 that was adjacent to the new 41. It's one of the reasons why we put it there. We have space for quite a few cars, and I think what's our count, 52 parking spaces? Okay, about 52 buses, that sort of thing. We're also going to put a couple of volunteers there. We got a couple of volunteer sites in the location. As Mr. Franklin, I heard Mr. Franklin say he was a gladesman. One of the things we attempted to do here, we attempted to model these buildings after an old gladesman cabin. If you might notice, it's got that low sloping roof, lots of shades, you know, tall windows, that sort of stuff. The big building that's sitting out there into the water, that's actually the open air pavilion that you can walk, that we have some interpret material out there as well. Now what this is going to do, this is going to link up to the original Big Cypress Boardwalk once we rebuild it. It's in the process of being rebuilt now. This project here costs us about $8.1 million to complete, but we think it's beautiful, and we think the park deserves a parking space like this because, you know, 4 parking spaces for 100,000 people, you may need to do something a little different. What you think? It's your backyard, so come and visit. Did I do 15 minutes? Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, VJ, how are you?
I'm well, sir.
Great presentation. My name's Mike Elfenbein. I'm the director of the Cypress chapter of Isaac Walton inside of Fakahatchee. Figure out how to build a camp there. Beauty of Fakahatchee.
No, sir. Very good.
I took a couple of notes here. Go over them with you. Wonderful drive, and it was always fun to do a drive. You could literally go all the way up 41, come up 951. You could enter Picayune from the west side on Sable Palm, and you could literally ride all the way back to Big Cypress, through Picayune, down Everglades, across Stewart, through Jane Scenic, out onto Wagon Wheel, all the way across the Turner River, down to 41, back down Loop Road. And so unfortunately the state park system has interrupted that wonderful drive for a lot of people, especially for me. My children haven't been able to enjoy that for many years. So the one request I have is if we could work with the state park to reestablish that contiguous use for the public of their backyard, as you put it. So do you want to take that, or can I just go to the next one and you can answer them both at the same time?
Well, funny you should ask. This is a great time to bring that question up. We do what's called a unit management plan process. At this time, we just started the unit management plan process about a month ago down at Fakahatchee Strand. Right now, we're in the process where we're doing staff rides, staff meeting, that sort of thing. Now, there's going to be public meetings, public opportunities for the public to come to the meetings and express their desires as to what they desire to see inside of Fakahatchee Strand, even that road being reopened. So I would say, look at it. Let's bring it to that meeting, and we can get it in the unit management plan, or maybe not, but we can. That's the time to bring that up.
Do you know the date for that meeting?
We don't have a date set yet. We typically, it takes a while to get to the public meeting, but we'll be advertised as well on newspaper, that sort of stuff as well.
Great. And then my next question is you might be aware of a problem we have down here, and Fakahatchee kind of lies right in the middle of it, and that is pythons, and the need, the desire, the justification for having to remove them from the system. And so every unit, depending on who the managing agency is, has different policies and procedures. And it's my understanding that many of the python contractors in South Florida shy away from trying to catch pythons in Fakahatchee because the process for them to do so is a little cumbersome. As an example, your agency requires contract Python contractors, those people under government contract with FWC and the district, to report to you 2 weeks in advance of when they intend to python hunt. And I know by virtue of state park, you don't do hunting, so folks there might not understand that you can't really plan a python hunt 2 weeks in advance. There's a lot of factors, environmental, that drive the ability to catch pythons. So for someone to tell you they're coming out 2 weeks in advance and say it rains or we get a front and it shuts their activity down, it's kind of counterproductive to the need to remove pythons. So if there's a way to work with your agency to change those policies to make the removal of pythons from the system a little bit more effective, that would be really helpful.
That's an excellent, excellent point. And I can't commit to there's actually a way, but I think we have a strong partnership with FWC. And so I think through that partnership, we can explore options to figure out a way to make that happen with a little less process.
That'd be really great. And I had a chance to drive by your cabin, your new visitor center on 41 there, and I love how you tried to make it look like a cabin, but it's hard not to notice it's made out of giant steel beams and concrete pillars.
Yes.
But I get it.
Well, we got the 8.1 million, we were out of money. So we
totally understand. Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Thank you
really
very much.
appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Looking around, coming around. Anyone else have any comments?
Perfect. Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
Thank you, sir. Glad to have you here. Okay, we're at one of the biggest reasons we're here, and that's the green heart of the Everglades property. And Roy, keep looking for you walking.
Beat you to it.
He's the Land Resources Bureau Chief of the Water Management District, and we'll start with you, sir.
Thank you, Noon, for the introduction. That's a tough act to follow. Again, my name is Rory Feeney. I'm the Land Resources Bureau Chief for the South Florida Water Management District. I'm joined here tonight with Justin Nolte. He is our Section Administrator for Land Stewardship. I'd like to thank Lisa and BJ for an excellent presentation about your respective areas and the public recreation opportunities you have. It's a fantastic presentation. I would also like to thank the Conservancy of Southwest Florida for hosting this meeting tonight. I was here just a few months ago with my daughter, and if you ever have a chance to do the tour and the interactive displays, it's fantastic. So definitely try to get around to doing that. So we'll spend the second half of tonight discussing the appropriately named Green Heart of the Everglades. I'll cover the location of the property, the land acquisition plan, followed by a description of the natural resources you will find in the region. I'll also highlight the project scoping meeting that we had last year and the comments associated with that meeting. After that point, I'll pass the presentation on to Justin, where he'll discuss the development of the land management plan, the interim land management plan, and the goals and objectives of that. So the Green Heart of the Everglades is located in Collier County, immediately west of US 29, with parcels just north of US 41 and south of US 41. It's 11,053 acres, is adjacent to Everglades National Park, Big Cypress National Preserve, 10,000 Islands National Wildlife Refuge, Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park, and Picayune Strand State Forest. With neighbors like that, it's no wonder why this habitat is so worthy of conservation. In fact, the neighboring Everglades National Park is designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. And for those of you who are not aware of that designation, that's the United Nations picks specific sites from around the world that are unique for their natural and cultural importance. So with that in mind, Wild Landscapes International entered into an agreement with Collier companies to acquire and protect those vital natural resources. And in 2022, the Florida legislature appropriated funding for the purchase of the Green Heart, the Everglades property. In 2023, the South Florida Water Management District, through the Department of Environmental Protection, purchased and closed on the property from 4 different landowners, which included buying the oil and mineral rights. The acquisition will enhance the habitat connectivity and preserve these exceptional Florida lands, and is also part of a larger strategy by Wild Landscapes International to secure over 400,000 acres of mineral rights in Southwest Florida, thereby protecting this endangered landscape in perpetuity. What makes these lands, the Green Heart of the Everglades, so exceptional are the 9 distinct habitat types. There aren't many places in Florida where in a matter of a few miles you can go from cypress forests to saltwater marshes. And here are just a few photos representing those habitat types within the property. Cypress forests make up approximately 6% of the 11,000 acres. Wetland prairies and freshwater marshes collectively make up about 25,000 acres. And coastal marshes and mangrove swamps make up over 50% of the 11,000 acres. Those habitats host a variety of state and federally protected species, including 9 federally listed animal species, 31 state-listed animal species of concern, 120 Florida state-listed plant species, of which 36 orchids are on that list. Some of the more charismatic species you could find in the area are Florida panthers and black bears, snail kites and American alligators. Of course, the Everglades mink and the Florida manatee, as well as the rare ghost orchid and little metalmark butterfly. But we can't forget about the people of the Everglades City that have called this unique place home for generations. The acquisition and development of a sustainable management plan could not be accomplished without the close coordination and participation from the local stakeholders. Taking this into account, we held our initial public scoping meeting on October 17th, 2023 at Rookery Bay. It was a very well-attended meeting with more than 50 stakeholders representing the local business owners, fishermen, boaters, kayakers, as well as the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida. The purpose of the meeting was to encourage and receive input regarding the Green Heart of the Everglades as we begin to develop the interim management plan. Specific tasks were to be identified from the meeting, including identifying the specific land management project goals and needs, identifying the project constraints, and consider the resources and budgetary requirements. The consensus from the public meeting was that the airboat businesses provided an important and unique experience that served more than just economic boost to Everglades City, and that the Gladesman culture is an important consideration in the development of any management plan. Comments were provided that the management plan should be based on a contiguous area that preserves traditional practices, restores and protects natural resources, and allows the public to hunt, fish, birdwatch, and engage in recreational boating. Others spoke to concerns about increases in motorized vessel activity, but felt optimistic that we'll find a mutually beneficial outcome for all parties. The meeting was positive, productive, and showcased the passion of the local residents. Our take-home message was that the management plan needs to be innovative and unique to that area. So this timeline shows where we are in the management plan. Since the project scoping meeting in October, the South Florida Water Management District staff have been working extremely hard to get this draft management plan out to the public. We have a few more milestones ahead of us before we really implement the plan. But before getting into those details, I'll ask Justin Nolte to step up. I'll hand the mic over to him where he can explain the management plan goals and objectives, the purpose of the plan, and then we'll take questions after that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. To reintroduce myself, get my bearings here. I'm Justin Nolte, Section Administrator for the District's Land Stewardship Section. I help implement the district's land management and public use program. And I'm going to give you a brief overview of the draft interim management plan for the recently acquired Green Heart of the Everglades. Get my bearings here. There we go. In this overview, I'm going to touch on why we have a management plan, what is generally in the management plan, and I'll focus a little more on the goals and objectives identified in this plan. All right. Why do we have a management plan? Well, this may be apocryphal, but Ben Franklin is often credited with having said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Now, this is sound advice, and besides being a prudent exercise in the stewardship of public resources, we have a plan largely because the Florida legislature says we have to have a plan. And now, I'm short of giving actual legal interpretation of the law because I'm a wildlife biologist and not an attorney. Roughly speaking, Chapter 373 of Florida statutes identifies that the public's interest, our interest in land acquisition for the benefit of our water resources. And this Chapter 373 goes on to grant the district's governing board authority to acquire lands, requires the creation of an initial 5-year work or management plan. And this chapter also provides some general guidance on what should be included in this management plan. Now, the district meets this requirement through the development of an interim plan. And it's called an interim plan because it covers the interim period between acquisition and our 10-year general management plan, which is a more robust and developed plan. The interim plan identifies the purpose of acquisition, which means generally is this land going to be conservation or for a project? And many of us are familiar with district project lands. It identifies the use designation, like is this going to be an impoundment area, a stormwater treatment area, or a management area. Now, it also identifies interim management goals and objectives and action items, which I'll get into in a moment. The plan generally describes the features, plant community types, and other natural resources found in the property, and incorporates a resource protection component in the plan. Get my bearings. The interim plan period is 5 years, much like the legislature directed. And then after this 5 years, we gain a much more robust understanding of what resources we have on the property and what it's really going to take for us to achieve this long-term management. So after these 5 years, we roll these lessons learned into the 10-year general management plan. Our management plan outlines are largely the same. They follow a similar outline in the development, where a large portion of staff's time and resources are spent researching the history of the property, identifying the resources that are on the property, and developing the goals and objectives for the interim. It's these goals and objectives that I'll expound upon here in a moment. And we've identified 7 broad general goals with objectives or action items for each goal. All right, goal 1, and these are, besides these first ones, are in no particular order really. Designate the land use and resource managers for the property. Now, recognizing that the identified optimum boundary for the Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park includes those lands north of 41, animation. We have included as an objective in goal 1 to transfer those lands to DEP to be incorporated into the park. And then the district will retain those lands south of 41 and designate them as Green Heart of the Everglades Management Area. Currently, all of these lands are undesignated vacant lands with specific restrictions on access hours and activities. Designating these lands as a management area will permit us to allow a broader range of access hours and other recreational activities. And then furthermore, we'll authorize FWC to create a public small game hunt area. So goal 2, we get into resource management. So managing natural communities and modified habitats to protect and enhance our floral and faunal resources. I move my cursor, I don't want to shoot a panther. To date, we have done some cursory surveys, but in this interim period, we'll gain a much better understanding of what the condition of the habitats or the plant communities are on the site. And meaning if, for example, my cursor's moving, should this be a wet prairie or a broadleaf marsh? And if it's not, what do we need to do to get it back to a wet prairie or a marsh? And that's where we do this assessment during this interim period, and then from there we would develop an applied management strategy to help us meet these goals. With that, the district also embraces an adaptive management philosophy whereby we employ novel tools and techniques to help us identify the best strategy for the situation. Let's see, also in an effort to maintain, improve, or restore listed species populations and habitats, we will identify habitat and wildlife monitoring needs and establish monitoring protocols for the property. Goal 3, nuisance and invasive species management. Manage nuisance and invasive species to minimize their adverse impacts on the native species and natural communities on the site. The district largely employs an integrated pest management strategy to control and manage our nuisance and invasive species. On the animal side, we often utilize public hunts as well as contractors to help us manage the larger species like feral hogs and pythons. And we plan to continue these efforts onto the Green Heart property as well. And on the vegetation side, and at first glance, the property appears to be in pretty good shape. The district will implement an early detection rapid response strategy on invasive plants and work with cooperators to help us identify, fund, and treat these areas. This one's pretty interesting. The hydrological management, protect, enhance, restore historic hydrological regime. In the interim and beyond, we would look to coordinate with regional partners on ongoing hydrologic improvement projects in the area and see how Green Heart of the Everglades can fit into the strategy and possibly improve the water quality, quantity, and distribution of freshwater flows into the property. I just want to point out here that take note that I've heard from several folks around Green Heart property that, if my cursor will move, that they've noticed that in their lifetime that the mangrove has started to encroach considerably into what may have historically been open prairies or marshes. And I want to point out on this 40s imagery, one can see, it's kind of hard to interpret from here, but one can tell this is more open, there are more strands through here, more access, and that the mangrove was largely relegated to the south end of the property, south of Ferguson. So it's, like I said, it's difficult to interpret, and this would need to be investigated, but it could be that changes in hydrology have allowed for the expansion of mangrove into these freshwater areas, and this is something that could be looked at in this interim period and beyond. Actually, I'm just going to go back for a second, just pointing out also some of the features here. A few culverts under 41. Of course, we know 41 is a major flow impediment, and then we have, you made reference to logging trams and stuff and going through Copeland and everything else. This is, cutting off the sheet flow from Fakahatchee and Panther and elsewhere down through Greenheart. All right, the fun stuff, public access and recreational opportunities. If FWC moves forward with the establishment of the public small game hunt area, then we would coordinate with them on the development of hunting regulations for the property. We'd allow for the use of motorized vessels so long as their use does not grossly impact the property. Recognizing that there is limited access, we will seek internal and external operational and capital improvement funds, and partners for that matter, for the infrastructure needed to provide public access to the property. We will continue to execute lease agreements with airboat tour operators so long as their use is deemed compatible with the property. And there's a trophy snook there from Ferguson Bay. But, yeah, I will note actually also too that that's an STA duck hunt. Same here, this boardwalk is from STA 5-6, but this is something we can envision seeing out there on the Greenheart property. Nothing exists out there to date. And recognizing the Goal 6, operations and maintenance of the facilities and infrastructure. During this interim period, we'll get a complete inventory of all the existing assets on the property, including culverts, water control structures, buildings, parking lots, boundary fencing, etc. And like I stated in Goal 5, we're aware there's limited access, and we will seek operational and capital improvement funds to create these access points, and of course with that would come all the maintenance. Excuse me. In this interim period, we're also going to have a survey done for the boundary and post the boundary, and this is going to be a significant undertaking for us and our resources. And finally, Goal 7 for this is cultural resource management. We're going to identify and protect existing cultural resources, coordinate with the Florida Department of Historical Resources to determine the need for additional surveys to ensure. Let's skip first so you can see that. All right. And then to ensure that survey findings are recorded in the Division of Historical Resources Master Site File. We will monitor and preserve all the known sites and provide resource protection through partnerships with FWC and local law enforcement. And that largely gets us to the next steps. So the draft interim management plan will be posted on the district's website at the link listed there, sfwmd.gov/land management. And we're going to have an open comment period from March 26th to April 23rd, next 4 weeks. And comments can be emailed to Greenheart of the Everglades at sfwmd.gov. After this comment period, we'll finalize the plan, present to the governing board for approval, along with the items identified under Goal 1 to transfer those portions north of 41 to DEP, designate the remaining lands as a management area, adopt the interim management plan, and authorize FWC to establish this public small game hunt area. And so all this talk of planning, and this is fitting right here.
Just a second. We carved out a lot of time for this, okay? So don't feel like you're going to be rushed.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that. And because we had a meeting, as we all know, a lot of stuff was discussed there at that meeting. Meeting today, and I go over this pretty close in this presentation, if you listen carefully. Lands north of US 41 to FDE lands, as far as I know, there's restricted public access, particularly hunting. So I didn't know whether people could read or hear that one sentence. The rest of it is wonderful. The district has done a fantastic thing here, and the state has dropped, what, $23 million $23 million for 11,000 acres. So I don't want to be a lot of negativity, but at the same time, it's only fair for the public to understand what that one sentence means in this presentation. Okay? And Mike, if you want to start, we'll start with you.
Actually, I'm going to just wrap up a little bit, and then this might be fitting. We'll see. But all this talk of planning just reminded me of a quote from Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And this interim plan period is going to allow us to identify what we really have with this property and determine what we're really going to need to manage this property from now and into the future, and to recover from all those punches in the mouth, and develop a robust and solid 10-year general management plan at the end of this interim period. Now I'll be happy to take any questions and defer to Drew for all the answers.
Round one.
Great presentation. Thank you, and Rory, both of you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? All right, perfect. Funny Newton brought that up because of all the notes I took, that's all I wrote about. I have been a huge supporter of this project since it was just a thought. I think we've done a great job collaborating, coordinating with Gladesmen and sportsmen in the community. And at the last meeting we had, which wasn't very far from where we're sitting today, it was abundantly clear and resonated quite loudly through the room that nobody was in favor of giving any of this land to the DEP. Giving this land to the DEP immediately eliminates Gladesmen. Immediately. There is no option. A hard-packed gravel road that's been open since the time they logged Jane Scenic Drive is closed for no good reason. That is all the precedent that you need to understand why nobody wants to give their little sister access to controlling who can get in there and who can't. So I think that if you move forward with goal number one, to give land from this acquisition to the DEP, you'll likely find that much of the support you've had until now might disappear rather quickly. So what I would encourage the district and everybody working on this to find a way out of that, and perhaps make an example out of it where we can show the DEP that hunting and fishing and Gladesmen and those traditional and cultural recreational uses, that many of which began in Collier County, can continue to exist simultaneously with the conservation and preservation of our resources being paid for with our tax dollars and supported by the people who were told that they'd be included through this process to the end. So there's a lot of people here with a lot of things to say, but that was kind of a shocker to see that in your presentation tonight after the robust conversation we've had to this point, where everybody was clear to say that no one wanted to see this go to DEP. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start on the right-hand side. Yes, sir. Yes, and be sure to hit your mic. Thank you.
Yes, at the last meeting, like the gentleman was saying, I don't see any reason to give that area to DEP. However, you know, since it's so easy to just give them that, why couldn't you work with DEP and do a flip-flop, use that property on the north side to take some of their property on the south side to make a much larger area? And it would be a great asset to Collier County to provide that. The area on the north side is a little rough area to even get into. They could have that. We could have a little bit more down south. It would be so much better that way, and much larger area to do all the recreational activities. There's more access points down there that could be easily accessed there. And the borders from Port of the Islands to 29, it's a perfect border. And then down south, you got the mangroves and 10,000 Islands. But other than that, I really agree with every other management plan you are putting together. I think it's really good for the south side. but I'd sure like to see the south side a lot bigger since you've got this other area to negotiate with.
Good point. Coming around, anyone else comment? Yes, Bishop?
I guess I'm gonna go here. My mouth tells me, my brain tells me to open my mouth. So I see we're gonna eradicate all of the hogs. First of all, I'm not familiar with this property at all, but I'm just looking at history. We've eradicated the hogs in a lot of area that the panther lives in. And the hog is part of the food chain. So when we bring trappers in and we just trap hogs out, we're taking away the food that other animals live off of. And we really need to consider this. I really think in OK Slough and a lot of these other areas, we've removed the hog drastically, and I really think the deer has become the next predator, or the next food source, not predator, from all these predators. So for just bringing a hog tracker in just for the sake of removing a piece of food chain, I think we need to really evaluate and look at the history of it. And I know I'm that guy. And I know it's an invasive animal, but it's been here a lot of time, and a lot of animals have learned to live and survive off of eating that animal. So I really caution this in a big way. I really would like for y'all to look back at history and kind of look at what has happened in these other areas that we removed the hog. And why do we have this problem? We removed something that's very valuable to the food chain. So how exotic is it is what I'm asking.
Another good point. Anyone else back there? Okay, behind me. Yes, yes, sir.
Just to repeat again, I'm Tom Dow. I'm here on behalf of Everglades Isle, RV Resort Marina and Homeowners Association on the Barren River.
Is your mic on? I can't tell.
I believe so.
Okay.
I'll be closer. I want to begin by thanking the South Florida Water Management District for putting together the Green Hearts Project and today's Recreation Forum. Today's updates, presentations, and plans were very informative regarding all that goes into and can be done on public conservation and recreation land. The entire Green Hearts deal has been fun to watch develop, and we appreciate the district visiting Everglades City and speaking with stakeholders as you develop your plan. We are hopeful that the final regulations are enforced and strike a balance between high-intensity motorized commercial uses and less impactful private activities such as hiking, kayaking, bird watching, fishing, while also preserving the resource and growing the city. Everglades Isle is excited for the public land recreation opportunities in the Green Hearts territory, and we appreciate the opportunity to participate and contribute. With that being said, we are looking forward to working with the district, the city, and other stakeholders to promote responsible stewardship and outdoor recreation in this newly public land. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm looking for another hand. Franklin, go ahead, please.
My name is Franklin Adams. I've lived in this region 87 years now. I remember when there were no mangroves on the Okeechobee Prairie or south of the trail. It was all marsh. Saltwater came in, I think first time in 1928, and killed out the tomato field that they had tried to plant. Been a lot of change, some good, some bad. I really appreciate the efforts of the South Florida Water Management District. That meeting we had in Rookery Bay with Jennifer Reynolds and Mr. Feeney was remarkable. I wasn't limited to 3 minutes that night. I have to point out something. The economy in Everglades City has been damaged over the years, not just the commercial fishing, But the airboaters used to be able to take people out, educate them, enjoy seeing the Everglades south of the Okeechobee Prairie. Eventually that was shut down, and maybe it should have been. But the only place they have left now in this region to make a living and to take people out is the existing ones in Everglades City. We wouldn't want to see new people come in and there be a large growth in use of the area. And as far as progress in Everglades City, in my life I've seen most every coastal fishing village, which that used to be, disappear. Everglades City is under threat now from big money and development pressures. People come to Everglades City because of what it is. It's not Marco, it's not Naples. It's a special place with special opportunities there. Now, when they built Everglades Isle, and the other development on the river, we brought up at the city council that there were airboats around. Yeah, they're noisy damn things, but that's how those guys make their living. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe a big stone crab boat's gonna go down the river. That's how they make their living. And as we all know, commercial fishing and making your living off the sea, particularly for shrimpers, is pretty much a thing of the past. So I ask you to really be cognizant of what you're hearing and being told about noise. And I have to say, I don't often agree with Mr. Mays here, but if we can discuss some type of trade between DEP and the Water Management District that will facilitate management of the Fakahatchee and downstream, let's give it some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Franklin. Yes, sir. Just either walk down and use the mic there, or
Thank you for the opportunity to make a quick comment. I'm Ray Bearfield. I'm the waterkeeper for Collier County. And typically, our interest is perceived to be protecting the quality of drinkable, swimmable, and fishable water. However, it is our position locally that the protection of indigenous culture is as vital as protecting the water, because once we start nibbling away at the fabric that makes up our community, it becomes very hard to start finding what we are going to save. For that reason, we have taken a position that the Glades culture, the economy of the people of Everglades City should be supported and reinforced. We don't see the future necessarily as being one of doing airboat concessions forever. We see that as an opportunity to look toward a future that incorporates an awareness of the need for resiliency. Salt water is going to move in on the city. The water is going to continue to get high. There are going to be many physical challenges to maintaining that community in the vibrant state that it exists today. And toward that end, to keep that economy strong as we can right now, with the eye toward evolving to, I could see, having a magnet school in Everglades City that teaches environmental awareness and coastal ecology and resilience. I could see having camps there where researchers could come in. I could see even programs where the people who grow up in Everglades City would have an opportunity to train to become the stewards going into the future. So instead of having park rangers coming in from the Rocky Mountains, maybe somebody could grow up in Everglades City and they could become a ranger in the park rather than having to, work on a crab boat that maybe isn't running anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Zach Lombardo. I represent Everglades City. And the city is very focused on its health, safety, and welfare. And I think the plans that were shown go a long way towards getting to that point. Because at the end of the day, the people that reside in the city of Everglades love the Everglades. And the absolute fact of how you can know this is that the mosquitoes. It is absolutely outrageous how bad our mosquitoes are. And yet these people live there every day. A lot of them are going to go home there tonight, and the mosquitoes are going to be insane. In fact, our mosquito truck driver is sitting right over here. And so no one's spraying right now because she's right there. So we have a group of people who love the Everglades, but we also have a group of people who make their money, and their families have made their money for years and decades and approaching over a century on the Everglades. And the town is a story in some ways of preservation lands coming in around the town. And on the one hand, this is fantastic because I truly believe that there's not a single resident in Everglades City who wouldn't support preservation because there's no fisherman who wants dirty waters. There's no one who wants anything along those lines. But what we do want is some amount of voice in this process. And so what we're asking for in this management plan, it wasn't on the screens, and we don't know if it's something that is being considered, but we'll put it in as a comment after council reviews, is some amount of local control here. Because at the end of the day, we have a small group of people who have been living in the same spot for 150 years, and they've got a pretty good idea of what this area is. You heard Mr. Adams talk about firsthand viewing what those prairies look like. And so we think it's very important that the city be considered as a partner for a local control option. We think there's a lot of different contractual ways to get there. We've had some discussions along these lines. We'd love to continue these discussions. We think that there's equal balance. You know, maybe the airboats could be quieter, probably. Maybe we could have more kayakers, also probably. But we need to work together to get there because the city is going through a big transition from the more traditional commercial maritime activities to ecotourism. And that's a hard transition at times for a lot of these operators. And so we're in that transition now. We're trying to protect the cultural heritage. But I want to thank you because you really did highlight quite a lot of cultural heritage with the airboats. There's a lot of pictures of airboats. I like that. In fact, one of the aerials for the mangrove marsh showed an airboat cutting through the mangrove marsh. So I think you're giving it the right attention, but we are here asking for some degree of local control, whether that be a voice in the management plan, whether that be a seat on reviewing the management plan going forward, because, and I'll end with this, the thing that is frustrating for the residents of Everglades City, for the business people, for the people who've had their lives here, is that when these meetings happen, we can get to some kind of agreement that yes, we can have airboats. But today is not the day we're worried about. We are worried 10 years from now when this plan gets re-reviewed and there isn't the head of steam on this, and the city does not have a voice at the table, and a notice goes out, no one sees the notice, and the city doesn't participate, and they get wiped out. So and this is something that has happened to the city with the Everglades National Park. It has happened several times to the city with the parklands because nobody initially ever says, no, you can't use this land. That's something that comes later once the initial trees are cut. And so we want now to get in front of that for the first time in the city's over 100-year history and try to get a voice at the table that protects the interests of these businesses on a go-forward basis. Because we think that there's a serious concern here, not tomorrow, not in 5 years, but in 10, 20 years. And the city is committed to preserving itself for that period. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and appreciate your comments. Keep moving around. Anyone else want to comment? I want to say, the gentleman mentioned the process. So the process is after tonight's public forum, next on the list is the development of the final interim management plan, which will then be presented to the governing board summer 2024. At this point, there's no further meeting of this nature between now and then. So if you got something you want to comment, it's either tonight or at the governing board meeting in the summer. Hopefully, there will be some other opportunities. Thank you, Roy.
Yeah, thank you, Newman. There certainly will be the next 4 weeks available for you to get a hold of the district using that website, that URL link there. You can provide your comments. The draft management plan will be out tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, for everybody to review.
Okay, thanks. And if you look, he's put up the comment period is March 26th to April 23rd. To the Green Heart of the Everglades at southfloridawatermanagementdistrict.com. That's what's up there. So that is the opportunity if you want to do it on the internet. Okay? Everybody understand? Thank you very much, sir.
So, yeah, these are great comments and very, very helpful as we think about this process. I know that, so the Water Management District was, yeah.
Find a microphone.
Hey, how y'all doing? Everybody hear me? My name's Mark Hickman, and I am an airboat captain and tour guide at Captain Jack's in Everglades City. And that title, I take the most pride in all that I do. The airboat is much less than high intensity, rather. It's the most eco-friendly motorized vessel you'd like to be on. All steering and propulsion are above the water. The bottom is nice, flat, and smooth. We disturb as little as possible in the water. The sound of an airboat is as a part, to me anyhow, of the Everglades is the whistle of the osprey. I'd like to start by thanking y'all once again on behalf of all of us fortunate enough to live a life with brown blood in our veins for securing this priceless parcel of our beloved Everglades for present and future generations to enjoy for recreational and traditional use, to educate and promote Everglades restoration and Gladesman culture locally and around the globe. Guiding passengers on fully narrated airboat tours through our local mangrove swamps within the green heart of the Everglades brings nothing short of entertainment, education, and excitement to an international audience, placing the crucial nature of our Everglades and all issues surrounding it in an up-close and personal spotlight otherwise impossible. Just as native culture is preserved and protected, the traditional use of this land, Gladesman culture, and the Everglades way of life are at risk of being snuffed out without similar protection. Earning a living and eking out an existence in the Everglades may not look glamorous, but the joy and awe brought to tourists and curious onlookers keeps my heart fuller than my wallet, and that's what really matters. That's how I can make a difference, and I can't imagine living any other way. Please consider in your management planning process that our traditional use is not an economic boost, but the final economic driver due to most all others having been stripped away. This is the local economy. I encourage you to search your hearts, place yourselves, if you could, for a moment in our shoes. Everglades City is one of the very few unique old Florida traditional holdouts in modern Florida's ever expansion and development. Residents and workers do not choose Everglades because it is easy. Living so far from amenities and some modern conveniences, and mosquitoes, is a strain, but it's a burden chosen for the life we get to live. At least for those of us who grew in or chose Everglades for its history and nature and culture, rather than viewing it as a palette to be wiped clean and replaced. The service we provide with our benevolent vocation to our city, the state, and the Everglades itself is invaluable. The international effort for Everglades restoration and the way of life and existence of our community as a whole ride on our shoulders, and that is a task taken to heart on each excursion. This is our daily connection to the Everglades and the connection we have the privilege to share with an audience from near and far. I'm begging you, please allow Everglades City and our traditional use operating in this small portion of the green heart of the Everglades, because it is just a small piece of it that we utilize, to continue and shine as a beacon of old Florida traditional Everglades life and Gladesman culture across the world to promote preservation and restoration of our beloved Everglades for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We need a transcript of
Okay,
that.
last call. Yes, sir.
For the record, Bruce Minton, Everglades City Airboat Tours. I want to thank everyone who has come out and has been working on making these decisions. As I've told Jennifer in numerous conversations, I'd hate to have to walk a mile in her shoes and the rest of you. Really appreciate your efforts. What I'm hearing tonight is it sounds like there's a decision somewhat made when you say we're giving the north side to Fakahatchee. When we say we're going to build access points for kayaking and canoeing and things, But what I'm not hearing is what does the short term look like for the airboats? What I caught is we're in a 5-year plan to figure out how to manage this long term. What's gonna happen after this 5 years for our family who's been doing this for 40 years? Are we still gonna be in there? As I brought it up to the board when they elected to buy this land, please keep us in this. And I know y'all are, I'm not saying you're not, but it's every one of you that has been out, you've seen the conditions where we run, you see how dangerous it is, and I wanna put a final plea out there. I know everybody's begging, we want access, we want access. They have all the access from Naples to Miami, all along the coast, all along 41 to do whatever they want. Hike, canoe, whatever. We have that one little piece there. And I know it's public lands, but the moment you start saying, yeah, if you want to kayak in this trail, I'm telling you, we're going to have to make the phone call to somebody, come pick the speed bump up, because that's what it's going to be. Because when you're in the trail, y'all come out. The day y'all come out, it stormed. I don't know if you could see that way. Y'all love water. You want to preserve water. Well, y'all got plenty that day. But with that being said, it's very dangerous back there. And we would hope that we can maintain an input on that trail system back there. Not only to protect the general public, because this is what we've done for years. For over 20 years, we've been back there. We have policed, as business owners, we have policed people in there. If we see a kayaker in there, the first thing we're on the radio is doing, hollering and screaming, hey, you need to get out of here. You're going to cause somebody to get hurt. It's not that we want it all to ourselves, but we're trying to protect, just as you're trying to protect the water, we want to protect our way of life and everybody else at the same time. Thank you so much, board, for all you're doing.
Thank you, good point. Okay, another last call. Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move to the last agenda item.
You're not gonna let me address anything there?
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to wait your turn.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, a lot of great comments, and we're hearing every one of them. Safety is obviously something we gotta have in our management plan, so that is, and hopefully we've captured some of that, and so when you see it, you'll be able to give us some feedback on it. To me, the big piece I heard was, what about the lands north of 41, and what are we gonna do with that? So, as we've been on this journey as a water management district, never even contemplated us owning this land to begin with. As it was getting the appropriations at the state legislature, a lot of conversations were happening with DEP on who's gonna manage this land afterwards. And going to the board meeting that we had, the thought was, as we approached the board meeting, that we would transfer the lands to DEP, and that was kind of the thought on the table between the district and DEP. Well, we got a lot of feedback on that potential, right? And so we have adjusted, recognized that the board recognized, the staff recognized that we need to maintain, a lot of the Everglades culture and Gladesman culture around Everglades City. So that's why you're seeing the current proposal where we're keeping it south of 41. There's more ideas that have been, the land has not been transferred yet. It is still in district ownership. That would happen in the future. As you comment on this management plan, I think it's important for you to talk to us about how you would see ideas on how to provide that access, how it's different than access you currently have in Big Cypress or other areas nearby. And because it's a big decision for us, because this land did not come to us with funds, right? So now we're in the business of doing a management plan. Now we're in the business of managing the recreation for that south of 41. So, getting a lot of information on what would be helpful north of 41 would be meaningful for not only discussions within the districts, but also discussions with DEP and the board. So we have heard so strongly from the airboat. We've heard so strongly from the airboat operators about everything that's going on south of 41. We've heard comments about north of 41. But what's important for us to know is why that piece of land and why you can't do that in other places along 41 as you think about giving us public comment. That's helpful? I
Yes,
knew
sir.
that would spawn other comments.
So, my name is Stephen Lenz, and I work for Everglades City Airboat Tours. However, I had the unique opportunity to be on part of a hunting club on the north side of the lease. So, I've actually had feet on the ground, walk back there, and to see it, geez, my son asked me the other day, why can't you go back to the lease? And it's upsetting, but to have unfettered access to the land, I mean, within restraint, but I mean, to lose that land to the DEP and not be able to access it the way that we did, there's a tram, we talked about trams, there's trams that run through that land, there's high ground, you can walk for 1.5 miles and not be in water. So, I don't know, I just, every time, like Fakahatchee, what do? We go to the gravel pit and fish, and that's it, there's nothing else to do there. I mean, I don't know. I really think you guys should reconsider something with the north side, making it more accessible to maybe a WMUA, something better for the people of Everglades City. So we don't have to travel to West Palm to go duck hunting. We don't have to go, we don't have much left.
I appreciate that. And so we've heard the duck hunting, and we do want to keep that going on, but you're bringing up a different location. It's just to be more granular on it, there was 2 parts north of 41. There was that against 41, and then there's the part that's up, up the road there. Are you talking both parts, or which one's most important to you?
It's on. We ran the whole thing, 3,500 acres. And if anybody walks back there, they say, oh my God, it's pristine. It's because we stuck to trails, we manage it ourselves, and it looks beautiful. Anybody that walks out there today, it still looks beautiful. I mean, it was taken care of. And to lose that for future generations stinks.
I think what the question is here, when you look at the map, which we probably should have had a better, the section just north of 41 is a block. There's a block there. Okay, is that the section that we're talking about? The other sections run long side, narrow sections. Listen, that's going to be almost impossible to work out in a public hunting area. I mean, we've been around this tree, a few times, but the only thing I'm looking at it from someone that doesn't know the area, so I've been very careful, as you know, all of you, not to make comments. But there is a block right north of 41, and that block is contiguous to the area that we're talking about. Yes. And I can see a good argument on my part that section should be a part of the management plan directly south across the highway. Not the little pieces and not the long strip. Right. But, well, there we go. That purple block right there north of the yellow, that to me seems to be a reasonable argument that should be a part of the management plan. Now, the other up there, it's just obviously very difficult to manage it all. So I'll leave that with you as my particular statement and from someone who's just looking at a map, okay?
I guess that's all. I just hate to see it inaccessible to off-road vehicles, airboats. It's a great place for the community to go that close for us. Otherwise, we're driving to, the East Coast to do all that stuff.
I know it's kind of out of order, maybe the way we're doing this, but I appreciate the opportunity to provide more input.
We have an open meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So I've had this conversation with probably all of you at some point or another about the fact that the people in this community have been scarred for 50 years. People in this community have been devastated for 50 years, and much of that devastation has been by the consumption of private land by the federal government. And so this community feels like it's dying. It's been forgotten, and it continues to get kicked in the ribs every chance someone has the opportunity to do that. giving those lands to the DEP effectively removes them from the Gladesman culture. And so finding a way to make those more beneficial to these communities as an idea, so as not to just beleaguer a complaint, but to give you a solution. Create a youth hunting only area, maybe incorporated into the Everglades Youth Conservation Network program. Maybe find a way to turn this into a training facility to teach people how to operate off-road vehicles like buggies and airboats to the general public who wouldn't otherwise have those opportunities. Giving this land to the DEP takes it away from the public and turns it into something you can only look at through the window of your car as you're driving by on 41 or 29. I beg of you, you've heard me say this to you many times, Drew, Jen, this is your opportunity to change the way these communities have been treated for 50 years and possibly, just maybe, build some fabric of trust between people who have given up a long time ago. So I encourage you just to go into your meetings and your planning with that in mind, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, another last call. But that's perfectly fine. That's what these meetings are for. We've been doing this for about 20 years, and it's important that everybody get to make their point. And that's why we don't have a 3-minute time limit. And you can also come back and speak again. So I hope everybody's pretty well satisfied. Okay. Thank you. Oh, one more. Okay.
How's everybody doing? My name's Hal Davis. I'm relatively new to the area. I grew up in Central Florida and born and raised here, but as far as South Florida, I'm kind of new, and spent a lot of time in 10,000 Islands. They just held a meeting there in January, or February rather, discussing public access, and they're thinking about going to a quota system for the duck hunts and whatnot, and the encroachment of the mangroves and how difficult it is to manage the little bit of land that they have. And I'm fearful that if you were to give this northern property to the DEP and remove that public access, the same thing that's happening to 10,000 Islands is going to happen to this new green heart of the Everglades, where those mangroves are going to continue increasing north due to sea level rise and, you know, potential lack of fresh water and other things like that. And the managers at 10,000 Islands feel that the only thing to protect those marshes and things that we have is to prepare the land north of 41 to become that new marsh and that new environment as the old marsh closer to the coast continues to degrade because of the mangroves and things like that. And I truly believe that, like many of others have said, giving this land away to the DEP is quite a mistake.
Thank you. All right, sir.
I'd just like to make a few comments. My name is Tim Brown. I live in Everglade Isle, fortunately, beautiful place. I'm new here. The last 32 years of my life, I've lived in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I've been volunteering at the forest, Bridger Teton Forest, led teams in, 1,000 Boy Scouts into the forest. So I'm very familiar with forest. I know nothing about the Everglades. But I do want to address the issue, the noise issue with the boats that are right across from us. I am not trying to drive, or none of us are trying to drive the boats out of here. Everybody has to make a living, an honest living. In Wyoming, in Yellowstone, there were 700 snowmobiles allowed per day not allowed. People just went in their snowmobiles. And people started complaining about the noise and scaring the animals. And the owners were asked to switch from 2 cycle engines to 4 cycle engines because they were quieter. And they opted not to do that. They didn't quiet down. So the federal government, bureaucrats sitting up in DC, decided that they were going to force everyone to go to the 4 cycle engines, which they have done. Now there are allowed 388 coaches a day into Yellowstone, and only 250 are going in. Why? Because they were forced out of business by the government, and because the owners didn't take the responsibility when they had the opportunity to quiet things down. So in my estimation, there's common sense that needs to be used by your boat operators. There are rules that need to be followed, and there are laws that do not need to be broken. And until we can come to an agreement on those 3 things, common sense, rules, and the law, and I've seen the law broken myself, there's going to be a push from our side to get rid of the boats. If you can't cooperate with us, we can't cooperate with you. Thank you.
Oh, whoa. Wait till we get your microphone and introduce yourself.
How's everybody doing? I'm Dwayne Daniels. Everybody from Everglades Isles knows me. My main question, and it's not procrastinating on anything you said, but what haven't we done to help y'all? Tell me one thing that we haven't done. Okay, you don't know the background, and you're sitting here standing in front of a whole board.
All right,
Okay,
public
just
comment is for
question.
public comment, not
Okay,
for
public
bracket.
comment. We in Everglades City have tried our best to comply in every way possible to make everybody happy. We've had multiple meetings. We've complied. We've fought with the guys. We've gave guys days off. We have exhaust in the water now. Not one of our boats does not have exhaust in the water. The only way to make them quieter is to paddle them. You want to come paddle? And that's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you. This is not a subject that we have tonight, but that's fine. I'll let both sides have a comment. So I like to talk about public access to the green heart of the Everglades. Okay, Mike.
Noon, this is the heart of the issue, right? I mean, you're looking at the bone of contention. The man from Wyoming who just stood in a room full of people from Everglades City and told them, we're going to fight you on using your land. That's the bone of contention. And giving any portion of that land to DEP falls in line with what that gentleman just said, which we all know to be true. It's an attack on a culture. It's not just who gets to use public land, when, where, and why. It's an attempt to eradicate the people who live here. The people who created what it is that everybody wants to come here for are now on the short end of the stick. And it's a tough conversation to have, but this might be the room to have it in.
I agree with the conversation, and it's tough, but this is not the forum for it. Okay, I think we're pretty well done, and I want to say I appreciate everybody's comments, pro, con, indifferent, whatever. That's what this is about, and we are pretty careful about making sure everybody gets to be heard. So now we're going to go to the last item of the agenda, and this is a recreation discussion, and basically this is where, again, we put it out to you guys to tell us what positive things you would like to see occur in this area for recreation from the Water Management District. And it doesn't cover just the heart. It covers every piece of district land in the area, what you would like to see. And if you have a topic, perhaps we can get it on the agenda. And that's what we're looking for here, is topics for the next meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting agenda. So does anyone have any ideas or comments on a possible topic for a meeting? Yes, sir.
Obviously, I'd like to see youth hunts.
Youth hunt. On what particular property?
I'm not real familiar with this down here in Newton.
Okay.
I think it's an awesome program.
I think everybody's been on the table for youth hunts. I don't think you'd ever have any opposition. Only thing hotter than that is wounded warrior hunts, I can tell you. Yes, you can, Jennifer.
I just wanted to add that we have a lot of other agencies here as well, so if people had comments that are broader than just the district plans, but in this area, since we happen to be in Southwest Florida and have so many of our partners here today, that it might be an opportunity as well.
Okay, Mike.
Thanks, Newton. Got to keep it going. People are going to fall asleep. Related to this area, Jen, thank you for that. A few months ago, we had one of these meetings, and I brought up the topic of wilderness related to work and asked that the district weigh in on wilderness designations. And the suggestion was to go to the DEP and get the DEP to weigh in on wilderness designations. So since you and I last spoke about the Water Management District weighing in on wilderness designations, we've had a formal letter written by the chair of FWC, the secretary of DEP, both of our senators, Marco Rubio and Rick Scott. We've had letters written by both the Miccosukee and Seminole tribes, as well as other tribes from across the nation who've weighed in and actually did an online petition with 25,000 people writing in opposition to wilderness. And so I think we've got some broad support from federal and state level. I think we've come to the point where maybe a letter from the Water Management District would be appropriate to express opposition to wilderness designations and how that might weigh in with the proposed work project that's coming ahead.
Thank you, Mike. Drew, you want to respond?
Thanks, Mike, for that comment. So as I have been asked about the wilderness designation, what I have told folks is, so at the Water Management District, we haven't really looked into it, right? So what I did was I called Roger and James Erskine and said, have y'all looked into this? Where are you on it? And they have said, yes, we've done a study, and they said put their position out there, which looks like a fine position for an agency that does this. And so I've just told people what he said, right? Just what FWC is saying, we're standing behind FWC as a sister agency. So that's where we are as a district, because we haven't really engaged in that whole process, just to let you know.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to, sitting here thinking and listening to everybody, offer a comment. I and my brother and our friend Gary, we canoed from Everglades City to Flamingo twice, the first time in 1970 in August and the September time. That was the only time we could do it. So I understand canoeing and kayaking, but as mentioned earlier, there is a safety issue with canoes and kayaks. They've got to be separated from the airboat area. I once was a fishing guide and an eco tour operator in Everglades City. I had the old Chokoloskis cruisers, old wood boat I restored. She was 36 foot long. To get out to the Gulf, and I fished mainly in the park, I had to stay in Indian Key Channel. Well, there are times I would go out there and I had a party on, and there would be canoes and kayaks all in the main channel. I would be polite, slow down, although sometimes I thought about creating a 4-foot wake. But, you know, if some of them were polite and would acknowledge that I had stopped, some would say, oh, a stinking motorboat, you know. So you've got a lot of people that come here to canoe and kayak that really aren't familiar with the area. and don't really know what's appropriate. So I just offer that thought that into planning, that we need to make sure that the canoes and kayaks are not where the airboats are. Thank you.
I have noticed that there's a push to get a minimum 10-foot flag on all canoes and kayaks anywhere in the swamp. That's for whole Florida. And as a duck hunter, I can tell you one thing, when I'm running around on Loxahatchee in the day, my flag is up. You know, in my little boat, because I know if the airboat come roaring around the corner, I want them to see me before they hit me. It's just good safety practice, you know. I mean, it's not hard. You just get a little piece of plastic pipe from the hardware store and tie a little fluorescent shirt on it. It works. Anybody else?
Just a thought about the north side there. Maybe it could become an area where you have to draw to use an airboat up there, and that would keep the number of people down, but you could use that as a recreation area, and you'd have to get it, you know, it'd be available certain weekends to certain people based on how many you could fit up there.
Long experience, this area is actually small. It's not large. And I can tell you, it's going to be a lot of quotas and a lot of drawing and a lot of applications, like it or not, because of the size. But that's going to be worked out in the plan, and the FWC will have a plan as well. And all will have a chance, particularly with the FWC plan, because that'll be done separately, the actual hunting plan. But what we have to do with the district is access. That's the district's part of it.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the north
Bishop.
side.
I'm going to go back to the subject, future topic. I guess it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. I talked about all of these. As you all know, I'm an airboat operator, and I'm talking from the recreational side. But I know that some of the tour boat operators up on the St. John's enjoy the system that they have for these tour boats. And I brought this up about a year and a half ago to look into this on the water management, South Florida water management side. But they have a plan, they have a system, and it works, where each tour boat operator is given a ramp. And there's a system, I don't know exactly how it works out, but I'm sure somebody in the St. John's Water Management District would be willing to share their view with y'all. But I say this over and over, and I'm not from this side, I'm the East Coast guy. And over on the East Coast, we got abundance of airboat operators moving into our public ramps and running a business out of our public ramps, your property. And every year, there's one or two more added to it, one or two more added to it. And, you know, they have all their cars parking there, and, you know, they have all their boats parked there, and they pretty much own the ramp because they're there every day, 7 days a week. So it's time that we probably start looking at this, especially with this other area coming online and people trying to adjust. I think it would help all of us understand it, just because it's time somebody looks into managing it. And that's on my future topic. And my other thing is, my last speech of the day is, Drew, congratulations for being reappointed. I got to tell you, we are thrilled to have you. Maybe when you first started and you were talking about canceling this form and some of that, some of the others, pressure putting on you, you know. But look at this room today, and look at these meetings. And I want to tell you, we've resolved a lot of conflict, a lot of problems here at these meetings, and I'm proud to say that we're friends. And I'm glad to be here at this meeting and drove all the way over. And I wish somebody from FWC would also put back together their recreational forum meetings too, because I think it solves a lot of problems before it gets to where it is today. So thank you.
And you can thank Ms. Roman as well, because when the vote was taken, her hand went yes to keep this committee. And I have to admit, I did sell it pretty hard, because I reminded them if they wanted to have a governing board meeting and not have people lined up at the door to come up with these issues. And that's what this does. And when we started this thing back a little bit before my time, I think Mike Collins back in that far. The whole purpose was, is a few of the airboat people were lining up with their lawyers at the door for the governing board meetings. And that was the beginning of this. And I want to tell you, it's so gratifying to see so many people turn out. You know, this is important, and we need your support. We need your support. And we are Zoomed, and you're more than welcome to Zoom the meetings when we have them, and you can participate just like this over Zoom. Keeps Molly busy, but we can do that. Tonight, unfortunately, we couldn't Zoom. Okay, let's move on, and we're on time, easy. Anybody else have any really good ideas for subjects at next meetings? That looks great to me. Drew, you have anything else you'd like to finish up with, or Ms. Roman?
I'll go first. First of all, I really enjoyed, I've got to keep my hand on this. I've really enjoyed listening to the conversation. As you recall, many of you in this room were here when we had our governing board meeting here in May of last year. And I saw many of the same faces at Rookery Bay in October working through this issue. And I know the staff and Drew and his whole team are committed to working through this and listening to you and bringing us to the point where we can all move forward with this important work. So thank you for being here. It's great to have you in Southwest Florida. Newton, you've done a great job tonight. Really appreciate all you bring to the table for the district and all our recreation in the public lands, and I really appreciate everything. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Drew, but thank you all very, very much, because this is how things get solved. It's everybody sitting around a table, being as candid as they feel comfortable being, sharing what's on their mind rather than walking out of the room with it on their mind, right? Laying it out there, for whatever it's worth, and us seeing how we can find that common ground. So my hat's off to you tonight. So thank you very, very much. Drew?
Thank you, Charlotte. Probably don't want to just repeat what you just said, because they were pretty perfect words. Newton, again, I appreciate you sticking with it and sticking with this forum and really bringing us all together. As you know, I get a lot out of this, and it's meaningful input for me. I respond to it, I act on it, and it's one of my favorite forums, if not my favorite forum. So great input. Thanks everyone for coming and making the trip and skipping dinner if that's what you're doing. But it's very, very worthwhile for me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The boss gets the last word. We're